Last night, my wife and I celebrated our 20th dating anniversary. Yeah, I know it's cheesy. We still celebrate our dating anniversary, but it's kind of cool because we get 2 anniversaries a year. And yes, I remember both dates. Uh, as is tradition, after we have a really nice meal, we go to the movies. We don't just go to the movies, we go to the Cineplex and try and find the worst movie, the funniest movie, the most disastrous thing we could possibly take in. I can't remember exactly where this started. It might have been with not another teen movie, if I recall correctly, or maybe there was one before that. But anyway, the tradition continued. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. For example, we went to go see The Aviator because we thought, hey, it's a DiCaprio flying around in planes movie. Turned out to be awesome. But I digress. So, as you can probably tell by the title, or at least the banner image for this video, we went to go see Cats. And we actually debated this for a good 20 minutes. And when I say debated, I don't mean that one of us really wanted to see it and the other really wanted to see it. It was more like, are we really going to go see Cats? I mean, we both heard the terrible reviews. It's got an 18% on the tomato meter. It's got a 2.7 on IMDb, which when I saw that number, my eyes bugged out of my head because I don't recall the last time I saw a number on IMDb that was that low. And those are user scores, I believe, like audience scores. So we finally decided, yeah, we're just going to go see Cats. The weird thing about being on vacation is that you lose all track of time and sleep and dietary concerns. So we're still hungover from the holidays, food-wise, and we're sleep-deprived and all that good stuff. So fine decision-making is not exactly on the menu, as it were. So after we stumbled out of the restaurant, we decided, hey, it's 10:30 at night, let's just go see Cats. The problem was it was 7:30 at night. We just had very long days, so we were delirious. We went to the theater. It was, how best to describe it? It was an experience. Now, I've read a lot of stuff about Cats. I've watched a lot of YouTube video reviews of Cats, and I certainly have heard from the critics, the press screening that was held a couple of weeks ago for Cats. That was apparently a jolly good time, in that people had a lot of fun ripping the movie apart. My wife said, as we sat down, as I was explaining to her why this was going to be an unmitigated disaster, even for me, someone who had a few weeks ago on the You'll Probably Agree podcast, not defended Cats, but defended the idea of Cats, maintaining that when people have their knives out, no pun intended for the Rian Johnson film, for a movie so hard, it almost seems a foregone conclusion that they're going to hate it or not give it a fair shake. And I just thought that was kind of petty and sort of cruel in a way, to judge something before you've seen it based only on a trailer and being so convinced that there are no redeeming qualities that it's almost impossible to come out of a film admitting that not only did you maybe kind of like it, but that it was, that was just terrible. I don't know if I got the phrasing right on that one. Pardon. Anyway, she turned to me and said, "You're going to love this movie," because that happens all the time. I'm not a contrarian by nature. I just happen to find myself disagreeing with public consensus on a lot of different things. But with Cats, I figured there's no way I'm going to like this movie. It's 2 hours long. The special effects look embarrassing from what I've seen in the trailer. And again, I've heard nothing positive about it from anybody. So even people I know and love and trust. Here's the thing. I really liked Cats. Now, I didn't love it. I'm not over the moon about it. And I certainly understand that there are some major flaws in it. But I also understand that when we went to go pick our seats for the theater, because it had assigned seating, the guy at the counter said, "Oh yeah, you can pick any of the seats in white." And they've got the little seat icons, and the ones in white are the open ones, the ones in blue are the taken ones. And my wife said, "Oh, so we've got plenty to choose from. There's all these blues." And he said, "No, it's the white ones." There were very few white seats left. Now, this was in one of the theaters that doesn't have like a million seats. It's got the recliners, so it's a smaller auditorium. But there were a bunch of people at Cats last night on a Saturday night, the week after release. So yes, I understand the movie's flopping, and it may very well have been a case of curiosity. It could have been a couple of teenagers just going into any auditorium so they could make out. I'm pretty sure there was a couple of those in our screening. But there was also people who were laughing, and not at the inappropriate or, I guess, ironic moments, but at some of the jokes. There are people who were very into this movie, and I was honestly one of them. Granted, I did have a little trouble staying awake during some of the numbers because if you know anything about Cats, it really is a musical in the purest sense. There's very little dialogue. The story is told through song and dance. So I don't think I was quite ready in that state of mind to watch elegant ballet for 2 hours with bizarre special effects. But I really got into the story, and the performances I thought were, pretty terrific. The music, not so much, but here's the thing. Nobody, at least I don't think, sets out to make a bad movie. Especially Tom Hooper, who's the director of this, who won an Academy Award back in 2011 for The King's Speech, starring Colin Firth. Another movie that I really liked, and I was surprised that there was a critical backlash at that film. It was an Oscar-winning movie and I got all this acclaim, but there was a critical backlash, not just from audience members who didn't want to go see some, period piece about a guy with a stuttering problem, but people who thought the movie was cheesy and just not worthy of the acclaim that it got. I was not one of those people. I really liked The King's Speech. I haven't watched it in almost 10 years, but I do own it, so I'll have to go revisit it. But the point of that is, this is a serious director making what is a serious film. It's very goofy. If you're unfamiliar with Cats, the premise is that it takes place in London. There is a cat that is thrown out by its owners, just abandoned in the street. And this cat is played by Francesca Hayward, who is a ballerina. This is her breakout role, I believe, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately because she does really well in the movie. The acting part of it, I don't think she's given much of a chance to shine because a lot of it is close-ups on her wide-eyed face. She is, quote-unquote, our view into this world of cats. And she does have a song or two, but mostly she's dancing around and she's very talented. But I say it's unfortunate because she's starting in Cats, a film that is bombing and getting critically panned. So I hope she finds work again, or at least I hope that she has a career that she's satisfied with. That this is not a stumbling block, because I believe that there's real potential there. But she plays Victoria the cat. She winds up on this street with all these alley cats who are called jellicles. They're like they're not exactly a race of cats. I don't know what they are. They're like a cat gang, but they're very disparate groups of cats. And every year there's a ritual where this cat essentially appears and grants one of them the ability to ascend to heaven and then be reincarnated into a better life. And it's this whole big prestigious thing to be chosen. And the film is essentially set up with a series of songs where a number of these cats come out and they sing for their supper, so to speak. They talk about their lives and why they essentially believe that they should be reincarnated. Here's my sob story, I deserve reincarnation. So Victoria is bearing witness to all these songs, as are we. Some of the numbers are very good, some of the numbers are forgettable, but the story behind the songs, that's what really got to me. You've got everything from lazy house cats to cats that essentially are companions on railway cars, to the evil cat played by Idris Elba, who's essentially you can probably figure out the story. He wants to get all the other cats out of the way so he can be the one to win this grand prize. And he also has magical powers, which is really kind of strange. You've got Rebel Wilson playing the kind of the goofy fat house cat, and she does some stuff that's really strange for a PG movie. I mean, she's like washing herself, and it got very graphic. And you've got James Corden, who's another kind of bit of comic relief. The movie's all over the place in terms of the different kinds of cats that we encounter, and I've heard it said that a lot of these performers feel like they're acting in separate movies, and I think that's fair, but they're all coming together to play these different parts in this one story. It's a diverse cast of different types of creatures, so you might expect that. If you look at something like Star Wars, you've got Luke and Obi-Wan Kenobi traipsing through the desert and going on this very serious, quest to get off the planet and go up against the Empire. But then they go into a cantina where there's all this kind of bippity-bop music and all these weird space aliens, hopping around. Those are kind of two different movies as well. But they meld together into this one tapestry. I think that's what happens in Cats. Now, I'm not necessarily comparing Cats to Star Wars, except I will. Let me go back. I've heard the criticism that Cats is ridiculous. These cats, the jellicles, and ascending to this heavenly space. I can't remember the name of it exactly, but they've got all this old terminology and language. A whole language of this Cats universe that sounds kind of funny, and the names of the cats are all very strange. You've got Bombalurina, which is Taylor Swift's character, Mr. Mistopheles, which is another cat that shows up. But I would say it's no more or less ridiculous than the idea of a story in which you have to take a magical ring to drop it in a volcano to destroy all the evil in the world, or a movie where you've got a group called the Sith and a group called the Jedi, and they fight each other with laser swords to bring balance to the galaxy, and there's midi-chlorians, or a private school where you've got these little kids who have to save the world by finding Horcruxes and waving magic wands around. I mean, all pop culture, when you get down to it and you try and describe it to someone who's never seen it before, sounds ridiculous. It's what you do with the premise. It's like this is Siskel and Ebert saying, it's not what a movie is about, it's how it's about it. And Cats, I think, is getting an unfair shake. The same thing happened to me, and I mentioned this on the You'll Probably Agree podcast a few years ago with The Greatest Showman, the Hugh Jackman musical. I had heard from so many colleagues that I'd known to stay away from it because it was atrocious. It was just bad. It was historically inaccurate. The songs were awful. The acting was cheesy. So I did. I stayed away. I didn't go. But I had heard from a lot of non-critical friends, we'll call them regular moviegoers, who went to see it, and they were raving about it, saying, you have to go see this movie. I waited for home video because it was cheap and I didn't have to go out, and I'm like, I don't want to take the risk. And I loved The Greatest Showman, unapologetically. I thought it was really fantastic musical. I thought the performances were earnest, and it was a lot of fun. And I was very surprised. My wife loved it. We were both, enraptured and also confused at the end as to why people didn't like it. And a lot of the criticisms that I'd heard from colleagues, and this is no slam on anybody in particular, but the complaints that they had seemed to be complaints about musicals in general. Like, oh my God, here comes another song. Well, yeah, it's like going to a comedy and saying, well, they stopped telling all these jokes, please. God, just get on with the story. The music is the story in a lot of musicals. I've also heard, there's certain songs where they're just talking their lines. They're not actually singing. Well, that's another trope of musicals as well. Now, I'm not the biggest musical fan. I'm not a musical aficionado. In fact, it wasn't until a few years ago that I really started to appreciate the form. But now that I have an appreciation for it, I can also understand that musicals, just like any other genre of film or artistic endeavor, have their own tropes and languages and, tropes and languages. So yeah, I can appreciate that. And the more that I learn about that, the more that I can appreciate, even bad musicals. Now, I've been talking about how much I appreciate Cats. I will say that there is some stuff that I just can't get into, or I just couldn't get into with the movie. Like Idris Elba's character, Macavity. There's a scene, he spends most of the movie in this kind of ratty but elaborate, I'll call it a cat pimp suit. But at the end, he's just naked. He's cat naked. He's head to toe in a furry cat suit, and it just looks weird. And it doesn't look like a character anymore. It looks like Idris Elba, coming home drunk from a bad Halloween party or something. Taylor Swift, she has a really good song about Macavity in the film. However, she tries to affect an intermittent English accent throughout the song that does not work at all. But I want to talk about earnestness, because Francesca Hayward and let's see, I'm cheating. I'm going back down to the IMDb. Robbie Fairchild, who plays Monkstrap, who's sort of the the cat that encounters Francesca and welcomes her into this world and sort of serves as her guide. He's another classically trained performer, not a movie star certainly, but there's something in the eyes of these actors. They haven't been digitally enhanced. You can still see their faces under the makeup and the CG and everything, but you can't fake the earnestness. You can tell they're excited to be in this big, universal picture, this adaptation of a very popular yet controversial musical. They're not phoning it in. The big actors like Judi Dench and Ian McKellen, they do great in this film. There's nothing about this movie that screams cash grab. It screams passion project, but it's a very strange passion project. You look at the production design, the sets, it's all very elaborate, it's painstaking. There's a lot of CG in the movie, but it appears to be in shrinking the characters down to fit to scale. You've got like mice and cockroaches interacting with the cats, and they're all people too in costumes. So yeah, I can't fault the film for the way it looks or the way it sounds. Jennifer Hudson's performance of Memories, I didn't really like it, but again, this is going to sound strange as a positive when critiquing a musical, but the music was sort of the least interesting part of the movie. I was wrapped up in the storyline and the story that was coming through in these songs. Now, because this is the first time I'd really heard the music of Cats, a lot of the story elements kind of went by in the lyrics, and I got lost, and I was also very tired, as I mentioned. But fortunately, after the film was over and the credits came up, I was like, oh yeah, it's the music of Andrew Lloyd Webber, but it's based on a book by T.S. Eliot, which I had forgotten. Now, fortunately, we went to see this in a shopping mall, so I was able to go over to Barnes & Noble right afterward and pick up Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats. I don't know if you can really see this because there's like gold lettering on a blue book. But yeah, and flipping through it, it's like 50 pages and it's illustrations. It's a children's book, essentially. It's based, it's poetry from T.S. Eliot from 1939. So it's celebrating a big anniversary this year, unfortunately with a movie that no one's going to see. But looking through it, the story of these different kinds of cats was translated into the lyrics of these songs. So reading this book, I was able to get a little bit more context for which was going on. Now, I've harped recently, along with some of my colleagues, about how bad a sign it is for your movie if you have to go read a book to understand what's going on in the film. This is not exactly that. This is a case of a story being told through song, listening to the lyrics, but not being able to catch everything. Because in addition to the different voices singing, coming together to sing these harmonies, and trying to pay attention to all the crazy swooping dancing and stuff that's going on screen, it's easy to get distracted. It's like listening to an audiobook while you're running errands. Sometimes you have to go back and rewind to catch things you might have missed. So I'm definitely excited about diving into Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats a bit more, because it's fun. It's whimsical. And that's the thing that Cats is. It's whimsical. It's a movie that I really can't wait to see again. I'm not going to go out and watch it in the theater again, but I will own the Blu-ray because it's an experience. It's unlike any movie I've seen this year. It's weird. It's not like something that you can go, it's not like Hobbs and Shaw or the latest Star Wars movie where you've kind of seen it before, you get the gist of what's going on, where it's going. No, this is its own beast. And it's not perfect. It does have a lot of problems. But, it's very possible you might not like musicals, or you might go to see it and hate the movie anyway or be bored. I mean, honestly, my wife fell asleep. She nodded off during a couple of songs. I had to explain to her what happened when she was passed out. But that's also not necessarily a critique of the movie, because when I described what happened, she said, oh, well, I should watch that again. It's just, not every movie is for every audience, but I think every audience deserves to give every movie a fair shake. And that's definitely the case with Cats. So if you have any reservations about seeing this film, I understand. And it's, I am also the last guy anyone asks. It's on the YouTube, the website logo, pardon me. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning and I got very little sleep. Perhaps, hey, maybe I'm delirious from such lack of sleep and such, overstuffing on holiday food that I like Cats because of like some weird chemical and sleep depravity imbalance. Deprivation, not depravity. What's wrong with me? This whole video is depraved, I admit. So I'm going to wrap this up. But the point is, go see Cats or don't see it. Just don't prejudge it before you see it. Don't think, oh, everyone's saying this is terrible, so it's necessarily terrible. The correct mindset is, everybody says this is terrible. I'm going to hold judgment until I actually see it for myself. And, if you walk out of the movie, that doesn't count either. Even if you watch most of it and you decide, I can't take this anymore, I'm just going to leave. I don't cotton to walkouts. I've never walked out of a movie in my life, and this is, I guess, me getting up on my high and mighty horse, but yeah, it's sort of a mini side rant. But you have to sit through a thing and experience it A to Z before you can say it was terrible. Because there have been times when I've watched movies that I wanted to walk out of, that I stayed and it was terrible, and other times when I've wanted to walk out and halfway through or 3/4 of the way through, something happens that turns the entire experience around and makes it worthwhile and makes it worthy of me going back and getting the greater context now that I know how things wrap up and resolve. I can appreciate the entire film even more. It's not always the case, but with movies, you can never say that anything is always the case. They're fluid, they're different, they're art, they're told from different perspectives by different craftsmen, and that's definitely the case in Cats. I understand that, and I've said this before, with other films, my credibility is now shot. This may be the straw that broke the camel's back, as it were, but I don't care. I saw Cats, I want to tell you about it, my experience with it anyway, and just say that from the last guy anyone asks, and take that for what it's worth, I liked it. So thank you. If you are new to the channel, please feel free to subscribe, like the video, downvote the video, because I certainly understand that perspective. If you've seen Cats, leave a comment in the comment section. Am I crazy? Or is this another case of The Greatest Showman, where a lot of people went to go see it, they reviewed it, they told everyone to stay away, but then maybe you went to see it, or your friends, your family went to see it, and they said, it's not that bad. Or maybe it is atrocious, and I need to get medical help. So please, leave a comment, subscribe, smash that like and subscribe button, as they say on YouTube. And thank you very much for listening to this little mini review. I'm going to try and get a little bit less rambling on some of these, but what can you do? So yes, I saw Cats. I liked it. You should go see Cats or not. But, whatever. I'm going to go have a saucer of milk and curl back up in bed. Thank you.